Hi. When people ask me, Jeff, what do you do for a living? The answer that I love to give is that I wake up every day and I figure out how I'm going to deserve my wife and kids today. Maybe some of you have heard me say that before, but it's true. And because I'm a very lucky guy. I've got the greatest wife, the greatest kids. I'm so fortunate with my home and family life. It's the number one thing to me. So I figure, what's the greatest thing that I could do to deserve that? How do I deserve such a wonderful wife and such a wonderful family? Well, the only answer I can come up with is just to help people. The best way to deserve everything that's wonderful coming to you in life is to make sure that you're helping others. Now, having said that, a mentor, a former boss of mine when I was a headhunter and a recruiter, he used to tell me, kid, go where the money is. Go where the money is. And so I want to make money helping people too, right? And so it dawned on me that there's a lot of unemployment going on right now. Like, I don't know what rock you're living under, but times are tough and people are being displaced and downsized and unemployment rates have skyrocketed and we're dealing with, the financial meltdowns and all of that. But so I figured, I've got some communication skills, want to help people. Where's the money right now? Well, I don't know if there's money there, but the greatest way to help people right now is to give you some skills. To help people become confident candidates. Now, whether you're unemployed and looking for a job, or whether you're a student, current or former student of mine, wondering what's waiting for you when you get out of school and you're going to have to go interview. What if you're a business owner and you're interviewing and you want to hire the confident candidates? I mean, there's a lot of, no matter what situation you're in, managing your career, managing your business, you're going to find yourself interviewing. You're going to find yourself on one side or the other of that desk in one environment or another. So hopefully I've got some skills for you. As a matter of fact, I got more than I could tell you about in any one given module. Three categories of skills that I want to talk about are listening, nonverbal communication, and then finally interviewing, the actual process of interviewing itself. So let's go ahead and talk about listening a little bit to start off. Listening, in my opinion, is the underrated communication skill. I mean, how many times have you seen a position description that says something like, must have excellent verbal or written communication skills? What about listening? Right? And so there are, let me tell you about some INGs, INGs associated with listening. First of all, there's about 6 of them, by the way. And a lot of this comes from textbooks, but I want to make sure I tweak it for you. First of all, is listening physiological or psychological? What do you think? Right? What about hearing? What's the difference between hearing and listening? Okay, and that's the first thing that I like to make sure people understand is that, and I love this expression that says God gave us one mouth and 2 ears, right? Have you heard that one? One mouth and 2 ears. Why? Because we should do more time listening than we do talking, and that's true. We should do at least double, probably more. But the problem with that is that we begin to associate listening with our ears. I need to blow that up right now. We hear with our ears. Hearing is a physiological process where the sound wave or the noise comes in, rattles the eardrum, and we figure out what that means. Listening is the psychological process of attending to what we hear, paying attention. So the first ING of listening is hearing. But I want to actually replace that with another word, which I'll get to in a minute. Hearing, then what do we do to make it listening? Because it's just hearing unless we have more INGs, because hearing is what? Passive. Listening is active. The next thing we need to do is attend, pay attention to what we've heard, right? Pay attention. And then we form some sort of understanding. What does it mean? And then we evaluate. We decide whether we like it or dislike it. And then we remember it. Anything that we attach a meaning to gets stored in long-term memory. And then ultimately we respond, right? So the INGs are the INGs. Hearing, attending, understanding, remembering, evaluating, and ultimately responding, okay? But I want to replace hearing with a different word, observing, because like I said, we don't want to think about listening as just something that happens with our ears. So if we replace the word hearing with observing, what happens? Right, all of the senses get included. I mean, let me ask you this right now. I don't know if you're sitting down watching this video right now, tell me right now if you can feel your ass on the chair. Okay, well, I got news for you. You could feel it all along, but you weren't paying attention to it, right? You were able to detect the physical sensation, but you weren't processing, you weren't attending, right? Or what about when you've been to a doctor and the doctor says, does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? Does it hurt now? Does it hurt now? And you're sending your brain to where the pain is to listen and pay attention for the threshold of pain so you can inform the doctor. Or how many of you are watching this video instead of going to lunch, right? Are you hungry? If you could eat anything in the world right now, what would you eat? A lot of times when you ask somebody that question, they go like this. And they start listening to their body, right? Hey, what does that smell like? You walk into a room, something smells bad. What does that smell like? Right? And you start paying attention to the stimuli that you're observing. So the first, this big tip that I've got for you is listening involves all of your senses. It's not just what you hear, it's what you see, what you smell. Paying attention to as many things as you can will increase your chances, especially in an interviewing situation. You can't just listen to what the person is saying, but you got to pay attention to how's the office set up, what's the energy in the environment. Just really have your eyes open for everything that you could possibly listen to. There's barriers. There are things that get in the way of our listening. And there are all forms of ego defense, by the way. Ego defense is your sense of self and defending your sense of self. And a lot of times when you're in an interview situation, you're all about defending your sense of self. A lot of times people have the mentality of being evaluated, being judged. Am I going to get it or am I not going to get it? Preparing for rejection, preparing for, a lot of times people are thinking about negatives and these preconceived notions, and concentrating on yourself creates a barrier to you truly listening for all of the opportunities that exist in that interview. Not just the questions, but opening up all of your senses to everything that you can observe that will put you in the best position possible. Other barriers to listening could be physical discomfort, or maybe you're preoccupied with other issues. Maybe a judgment or a bias that you have ahead of time. If you're saying to yourself, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get this job, I don't know if I'm going to get this job, and that's the mindset that you have heading into it, that self-talk could keep you from listening to what's going on in the interview. So try to, you could look it up, you could Google it, there's more barriers. I don't have time to tell you all of them, but the more you can be aware of the things that can prevent your listening, the more you can overcome them, especially in an interviewing situation. And then last thing I want to tell you about listening is the difference between, active listening, proactive listening, versus defensive listening, or a lot of times I call it, or I think Stephen Covey referred to it this way, autobiographical listening. We're always listening about ourselves, and like I said, in ways that defend our ego or protect our sense of self, that try to give us face, especially in public scrutiny, so to speak. But active listening is where you can put yourself aside for a minute and be more investigative and ask questions and lean forward and include things in your listening, like probes and clarifiers. Tell me more. Does that answer your question? Do I understand your question correctly? What else can you tell me about the position? How did it come? The more questions that you can ask, the more you'll be able to listen to, but listen actively rather than defensively. Listen experientially rather than just autobiographically or from an ego defensive perspective. Now, there's a lot more that I could say about listening, but I want to tell you a little bit about the nonverbal communication, because this plays such a big role. As a matter of fact, there's some studies that argue that more than 90% of everything that we communicate is in fact nonverbal. So a couple things I want you to know about nonverbal communication is that, first of all, it can be intentional. Like right now, me holding my hands like this and raising my eyebrows and tweaking my voice and smiling, that's all intentional. I'm deciding to do those things because I want to enhance my communication. But other times, nonverbal communication can be unintentional. And that's because communication is receiver-based. It doesn't matter what we want to send or if we're intending to send a message at all. What matters is what people see. What are people observing? And a lot of times, we're not even aware of what people can observe, but as soon as they observe it, they decide what it means, right? So you need to be aware of your posture, your voice. You need to be aware of your pace, your tone. There's a lot of categories of nonverbal communication that you want to be aware of and conscious of. But if your self-talk is all about, am I going to get the job? Do I know the answer to the question? How many people are interviewing? Is this a waste of time? Am I prepared? If you've got all of that stuff going on, you don't have enough self-talk to say to yourself, make good eye contact, sit up straight, have a good gesture, smile. If you can tell yourself to be intentional with your nonverbal communication, you're going to up your chances of being an attractive candidate. And keep in mind, how we say what we say is in fact what we're saying. I mean, I do this all the time. I ask people to say, ask me how I'm doing. Maybe I can get the camera operator to do it. Patrick, ask me how I'm doing.
How are you doing?
Fine. Right? So my intention was the word fine, right? But all this other stuff came out. What did you see? I'm not really fine. I'm really, whatever that is. So how you say what you say is in fact what you're saying. Does that make sense to you? I hope you get it, because the mood that you're in, the self-talk, right? That's going to have an impact on your pace, your tone, your pitch, your confidence, just the way you vibrate. So it's not the words that you choose that people are really picking up on. It's how you're saying those words. Patrick, try it one more time. Ask me how I'm doing.
How you doing, Jeff?
Patrick, thanks for asking. I'm in a horrible mood. I can't wait to kill somebody else or myself. How about you? Yeah, so my content was I'm in a bad mood, I want to commit suicide or kill somebody. But my nonverbal communicated something completely different. And that's what you need to be aware of when you're interviewing. Don't just answer the questions. Answer them with the confidence that you want to portray. Answer them with certainty. Answer them with eye contact. Even if you don't know the answer to the question, make eye contact and say, you want to know what? I don't know the answer to that question. But I'm very capable of finding the answer to that question. I can't wait for my second interview. Now you're communicating not incompetence, you're communicating confidence, even when you don't know the answer. So it's not what we're saying that's what we're saying, it's how we're saying what we're saying. That is, in fact, what we're saying. Now, the third thing I want you to understand about nonverbal communication is that, again, I'm making this distinction between what we're saying and how we're saying it. So think about sides of the brain. If you guys know anything about Psych 101, left hemisphere, right hemisphere, different sides of the brain do different things. So one side of our brain is systematical and logical, and it operates in the field of language, choosing from an organized system of symbols what word combinations we want to put together. That's totally different from the other side of our brain, right? That's emotional and artistic and mood-based and so forth. And so one side of our brain is controlling the language choices, fine. The other side of our brain is controlling the mood that we're in. And so what I want you to do when you're interviewing is to sync those two up and make sure there's congruency between what you're saying and how you're saying it. But in order to do that, you need to understand a thing or two about state of mind. So let me take a minute to talk about state of mind and 3 ingredients of state of mind, because sometimes our state of mind is something that we just react to based on habits and patterns and beliefs and so forth. But other times we can decide what state of mind we want to be in. I don't have time to tell you examples. Actually, I'll tell you an example real quick. One time I was on vacation in Mexico with my family, my wife's family. There was 10 adults and 11 to 12 grandkids and 2 different Suburbans to get us to and from the airport. And I decided it was in Mexico, right? So I wanted to go to the bathroom right when the cars came so I didn't have to go to the bathroom on the ride to the airport and at the airport and all that stuff. But what happened? I didn't tell anybody I was going to the bathroom. I'm starting to laugh now because this is a little bit embarrassing, but it's a good story. And so when I came out of the bathroom and I go up, I thought, oh, there's plenty of time. The cars come, I'll go to the bathroom. It's going to take them 15 minutes to load up. I was wrong, right? So by the time I get out of the bathroom, I go up, they were gone. I didn't have my passport, I didn't have my money, I didn't have my bag, I didn't have anything. I'm stuck at this little villa in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and my family's off. Now, of course, Marianne, my wife, she was dealing with the kids, and everybody thought that I was just in the other car. Everybody had luggage and their kids to deal with. Nobody's going to be like, let's make sure we get Jeff. Right? So, but at first, though, I was stranded and shocked, and my initial reaction was anger, because when we're uncertain or when we feel insignificant, we go straight to anger. And I thought to myself, that's not what I want to be in. That's not who I want to be. And by the way, to solve the problem and get myself out of the situation, anger wasn't going to do it. If I go start yelling everywhere, nobody's going to want to help me at all. So I actually stopped, I took a deep breath, and I decided that I wanted to be in a different state of mind. I wanted to be grateful. I wanted to be calm. I wanted to be resourceful. I didn't want to be angry, abandoned, and so on and so forth. So using what I'm about to share with you right now, I was able to shift my state of mind. Ultimately, they called ahead, radio communications. They were able to turn around and come back. And when they opened up the door for me to climb into the Suburban to go, I'm like, hi guys, thanks so much for coming to get me. They're like, you're not angry? You're not mad that we left you behind? I said, no, that wouldn't do any good for anybody. And they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe I was calm. They couldn't believe I was grateful. And it made a really good impression on my wife's family that I wasn't some hothead, angry kind of guy. Let me tell you what I'm talking about right now. When we talk about, and this comes from Abraham Maslow or people that understand behavioral motivation. Tony Robbins does a lot of great work on this. And this comes from Tony Robbins to JTS advisors, Jeff Suey, and the coaches training I went through. So I want to give this justice a little bit. We're talking about state of mind. Your mind is in a particular state any given minute. And there's 3 ingredients that will make up your state of mind in any given moment. And one of them is language, our language choices. The other ingredient is the beliefs that we're focused on. And the third ingredient is our physiology. And if you imagine a triangle, as a matter of fact, it's a good idea to draw a triangle, and on the inside of the triangle, write the word state of mind, and below that write an equal sign, and then at the bottom of the triangle just make a blank line as if it's a placeholder for any variable. In other words, state of mind equals blank. So it's either going to be a good mood or it's going to be a bad mood, right? Not often neutral. So the idea is that whatever state of mind you're in, whatever mood you're in, is going to be dictated, defined really by these 3 ingredients. So on one side of the triangle, we're talking about language choices. think about as a confident candidate if you're using active versus passive. If you're talking about the results versus the process when you're being interviewed. I'll give you a great example from coaching. Tony Robbins, as a matter of fact, he says you shouldn't should all over yourselves when people use the word should versus could. I was coaching a guy one time and I said, Tom, his name was Tom, make a list of all of the things that you could be doing, and we'll get 10 of them, and then we'll find the 2 that will make the greatest difference, and then we'll get you going. And he comes back, he says, I couldn't do it. Every time I made a list of the things that I should be doing, I blanked out and I sabotaged it and I couldn't do it. I said, what are you talking about, should? I didn't say should, I said could. And the difference, because should is guilt-based, should is blame and shameful. I should be doing it, it means I haven't done it. So it creates a state of mind of guilt. But could is about possibility and choice, puts you in the driver's seat. So just a simple thing of like should versus could can make a difference in our behavior. There's other examples of language choices, like when people use the word hate. If I'm coaching people and it's, I hate interviewing, right? If you say I hate interviewing, and that, you could be a wonderful person and not even believe hate exists in the world. But why would you use that word for interviewing, right? And now that creates your state of mind. So if you hate interviewing and then you go into interview and you don't turn that state of mind around, I guarantee you the person you're interviewing is going to feel that you hate interviewing. So what could you replace hate with? I genuinely dislike. By the way, if you're saying hate, you got to tense up. I hate. You can't kind of hate. You can't be mild and passive about that. Hate is an intense kind of language and emotion, so you got to be tense, and that's not the way to go into an interview. You want to be relaxed. So you pay attention to your language choices. Now, if that's not changing your state of mind, another way to change your state of mind, which is kind of easier, is your physiology. Right? There's 3 aspects of your physiology that you can change at any given moment, and it'll change your state of mind. First is biochemistry. Let me give an example. Take a sip of coffee. I've changed my biochemistry. Now I got more caffeine. Now I've got more energy. I don't know that I needed any, but one way is just to change the biochemistry. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough nutrients? How's your diet? Are you getting enough carbs, proteins? How's your balance of sugars, hydration, acidic, alkaline, all of that stuff, just what's flowing through your biochemistry. And it's not just stuff that you get from the outside in. It's also your emotions, because if you think about something for 60 to 90 seconds, your hypothalamus will make a chemical out of that and kick it into your bloodstream and all of that. So it's not just outside stuff in, it's also the things that we create in our own biochemistry. The second thing that you can control is structure or posture, right? If, think about being angry. We're never like, man, I'm angry. If you're angry, you're going to be intense and the balls of your feet moving around. And so if you're slouched, how's your body angled? Are your shoulders upright? If you just change your posture, you'll change your state of mind. If you're feeling depressed and you stand up and you do 10 jumping jacks real quick, you may not have solved your problem, but you won't feel depression the way that you will when you're slumped on the couch or laying over on your side in the same pair of sweats for 3 weeks or whatever the case may be, right? So pay attention to posture. It'll have a key impact on your state of mind. And then movement. When you move your body, how are you moving your body? I gave the example that if you're depressed, as a matter of fact, think about depression real quick. Think about a time that you've been depressed. Got it? Now think about running faster than you've ever run in your life, right? There's an incongruency there. I hope you felt it. You can't be running full speed and be depressed. If you're running full speed, it's a different emotion. So if you don't like the way you're feeling, drink a gallon of water, do some jumping jacks, move around, and that's one way to change your state of mind. The toughest part of all of this is the beliefs, is the third ingredient of state of mind, is the beliefs and what we focus on. And I tell you that beliefs are funny, because a belief is a feeling of certainty that something is true, even if it's not true, even if it's not true at all. And we can believe at one moment that time is money, and we could believe another moment that patience is a virtue, right? And those would seem to contradict. So what would be the difference between whether we focus on this belief or focus on that belief? It's underneath it all, it's emotional fulfillment. But my point is that what beliefs are you focused on when you're going to interview? What are your belief mechanisms? Are you confident? Are you qualified? Are you prepared? Are you focused on, I'm just another number in the process, or I don't have a chance to get it. What's your self-talk? What beliefs are you focused on? Because you can only focus on one belief at a time. So if you believe that the world is flat, you wouldn't go discover new land. But if you believe that new land was worth dying for, then you'd go do anything, right? So are you the pilot or the autopilot, right? Are you in control? Are you consciously intending, choosing ahead of time what you can believe? Right? Because sometimes our beliefs are it's like a default. We just gravitate and we just believe something out of habit or pattern. But how often do we say, look, this is what I'm going to believe, and I'm going to consciously pay attention to this belief when I go in. I'm qualified, I'm hireable, I'm marketable, there's a perfect job for me, I'm going to learn something in this interview, I'm going to get something out of this interview, even if it's not the job. Right? There's all kinds of things that you can believe and that you can focus on while you're interviewing that put you in the state of mind that's going to promote good nonverbal communication and so forth. Now, and by the way, if you changed any one of these three ingredients, you'll change them all because they're all connected. Language is connected to beliefs, and beliefs and language are connected to physiology. So if you change in one, you change them all. So you have three entry points, if you will, to author your own state of mind. Your state of mind doesn't have to just be a reaction or a pattern or a habit. You can choose the state of mind that you want to be in, and when you do, you're going to be more likely to behave the way that's appropriate for what you are trying to achieve. Now, the third and final set of communication skills that I want to give to confident candidates are interviewing skills. And one of the things that I came up with to try to be a little bit different here is, I was thinking, God, what does a candidate want to keep on their mind when they head into the interview? Right? Interviewing skills have been talked about up and down, left and right. Something that they actually teach you in school before you get out. But I want to have like a little bit of an addition or an enhancement. So the first step here is to know what you want on your mind. I'm calling it the confidence headband, if you will. Because it doesn't matter what we're doing in life, whether it's interviewing or hiring or playing with our kids, or it doesn't matter what we're doing, there's certain success principles. There's certain principles that are proven success principles that we should stay aware of when we're doing anything, including interviewing. So a couple of them are, I talked about this earlier, listening. Listening is a great pathway to success. It's a great way to get information, to make good evaluations, to connect with the people that you're talking to. So make sure you pay attention to listening, right? If you're answering a question, stop. A lot of times in interviews, people that are out of a job, they're so spring-loaded to try to get a job that they're talking. They won't stop, listen, make sure they understand the question, and pay attention to the whole process. We talked about nonverbal communication. Another principle of success is visualization. Right? Left to our own devices, especially if we're out of work or if we're stressed or anxious about getting a job, we might visualize things that we don't want. It's always important to visualize what you do want. Before you get into that interview, right? Close your eyes and imagine exactly how you want it to go. See yourself across from the people that you're interviewing. Imagine yourself shaking hands, good posture, being confident. I did all of that with my eyes closed because I need you to spend some time visualizing a successful experience. If you don't, and you're only visualizing what could go wrong, guess what's most likely to happen? So a success principle of visualization is critical when you're getting ready to interview. Another principle is openness. I love how the Star Wars movies say, Jedi don't think in terms of absolutes. Right? So it's not like you get the job or you won't get the job, but be open to all of the things that can happen. You have no idea what's going to go on when you get inside to that environment for that interview. You don't know who the hiring manager is going to be. You don't know who the HR, you don't know who the coworkers are going to be. You don't know who else is going to be sitting in the hallway. Be open to everything that you could get out of this process. Because if you're just trying to get a job and you're spring-loaded on that, you may ignore other opportunities that exist. People that, an opportunity to build relationships, and maybe it's not this job that you get, but maybe it's a job you get 5 years from now, because you made a good impression and the person will remember you later on and have the more appropriate opportunity. But if you're closed-minded, you limit your chances. There's a lot of wonderful things that can happen in an interview other than just getting the job. And as a matter of fact, sometimes not getting the job is the greatest thing that can ever happen to you in an interview. Another success principle to keep on your mind is gratitude. You want to be thankful. You want to be appreciative. You don't want to go in there, with a sense of, judgment or protecting against ego defense or scarcity or fear or criticism. You don't want to be thinking about that. You want to be grateful for your opportunity. Interviewing is an opportunity. And don't just think about getting the job. Again, be open. It's an opportunity to learn more about the company, build a good relationship. It's an opportunity to get experience or make mistakes, which is just learning in disguise, right? So be grateful for everything that's happening. So many people go into the interview and it's only good if they got the job and it sucked otherwise. That's not the way to be a confident candidate. That's not the way to be a successful candidate. Ultimately, don't forget to be yourself. Don't forget to be yourself. So many times people go into an interview thinking that they need to be what they think the company or the hiring manager wants you to be, but then what? Then you got, even if you get the job, then you got to maintain this facade the entire time. Ultimately, it's going to be hard to maintain. Be yourself. If you get the job, it's going to be because you're qualified and you're perfect, and being yourself is what's perfect. Don't forget to be yourself. Keep these success principles on your mind. Back to visualization, and interviewing skills. Have a destination postcard in your mind. Like, again, know your objectives like the ABCs. Remain, open to what's unimagined. But what I'm getting at here is, like, the objective on your resume. What's your objective? As easily as you could say the alphabet or your name, you should be able to say your objective for interviewing. How are you managing your career? What do you want to get out of the interview? What are you looking for in a job? You should be able to articulate your purpose and your mission as easily as you'd be able to articulate 2 + 2 = 4. And that's really important, because it's not just the competence, but it's also a fit that usually interviewers are screening for, and you should be screening for as well. And then, what's the ammunition? Finally, what's the ammunition of interviewing? It's questions. Now, a lot of times people go into interviews trying to get ready and trying to anticipate all the questions that you're going to be asked. And there's some that you're going to be asked. You're going to be asked biographical questions about your status, your motivation, your salary history, where you live, if you're willing to commute, whatever the case may be. You're going to be asked competency-based questions. Do you know your stuff? Can you do what the job needs you to do? You're going to be asked behavioral questions. How would you perform in this certain situation? Or if this happened, what would you do? So you got to think on your feet and know, what are your ethics? What are your values that drive your decision making? Yeah, definitely be ready to anticipate and answer those questions. But you're going to screw the interview up in all likelihood if you're not ready to ask good questions. When I've been hiring, or when I've been assisting clients of mine hire other candidates, I know the candidate's not going to get the job if we get to the interview and we say, so, do you have any questions for us? And they go, no, not really. What's happening next? Or when will I find out more? Or when will I hear from you? And they don't have any questions. They just want to know when they're going to find out if they got the job or not. That's not the candidate that I'm going to recommend. You want to have questions ready to ask. Yeah, tell me about the company. Tell me about the job. How did this job become available? Is this a brand new position based on growth, or is it a replacement position? What happened to the other person? How did this job become vacated? Tell me about the team that this job works within. Is there any boundary spanning opportunities? What are the main accountabilities? What's the opportunity for growth? Tell me about the staffing process. Are you doing 1 interview, 2 interviews? Then you can start to ask where you sit in the process. But if never forget that you got to screen this interview for you. You don't just, some people are unfortunately, they got to take any job they can get. But then, it's just a Band-Aid approach, and there's going to be misery later on. Trust me. The confident candidate goes in interviews for jobs that they want, jobs that are consistent with your way of life, consistent with the life that you want, the income you need to earn, the emotions that you want to experience, and so forth. So don't let the challenging times have you going into interviews without confidence, without a destination postcard, without an awareness of why you want to be employed and what kind of work you want to be doing, and make sure that you're in a position to screen each opportunity. Don't just go in thinking that you're being interviewed and the light's on you and you got to answer all the questions. Interview the company and make sure they're what you want. And chances are, if you have that mentality of a two-way street, then you're going to be more confident, and you're going to appear that way if you're screening the opportunity for your criteria rather than just being on display. So there's so much more I could say about confident candidate. I hope I've given you some interesting things to think about. And to wrap it all up, we talked about listening, and we talked about nonverbal communication, and we talked a little bit about interview skills. My name is Jeff Klubeck. I just want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you got a couple of things out of this that you'll be able to use when you're managing your career towards the success that you really visualize for yourself. Thanks for paying attention. Take care.